What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the specs of the iPhone 5S to the Sony Xperia Z1. Now both of these are the flagships of their manufacturers, but how do they compare? What's different? Well, do hit that thumbs up button and let's find out in this head-to-head spec comparison. So let's start off initially with the dimensions. The Sony Xperia Z1 is quite a bit larger, 20.2mm in terms of height, 15.4mm in terms of width, and almost a millimeter thicker, so it is a larger device. Now part of the reason for that is because it's got a larger screen. It's got a 5-inch screen versus the 4-inch screen on the iPhone 5S. So generally speaking, the 5S is going to be better for one-handed usage and a little bit more compact. Now in terms of the resolution, the Xperia Z1 does come with a full HD 1080p screen, so you've got 1920 by 1080, 441 pixels per inch, so very high pixel density here. Now the iPhone 5S has the same resolution as the iPhone 5, 1136 by 640, so less than 720p HD, 326 ppi. So generally speaking, the Z1 is going to be that much better for HD videos, the larger screen as well, with that resolution and that ppi. Now with the iPhone, they wanted to keep the apps consistent, so developers wouldn't have to update all of the apps, but I don't think that's an excuse. I do think that they could have done with a better ppi and a HD screen, 720p at least, especially seeing how many 1080p screens we've got on the Android side. Now the Xperia Z1 is quite a bit heavier than the iPhone 5S, 58 grams heavier, so quite a bit of weight on there, but that does come down to the build. The iPhone 5S has the aluminium unibody build, which is available now in the black, the silver, as well as the gold versions. Now something unique about the build on the Xperia Z1 is it's an aluminium frame with glass on front and back, shatterproof glass on the front and back, but it is IP58 certified, water and dust resistant. So that's something very, very unique for the Sony line of smartphones here, that you're going to be able to drop it in water, take videos underwater and things like that as well, and you're not going to have to worry about, getting some water on it or something, which will be a problem with all of the other devices out there. And the Z1 is available in the black, the white and the purple versions. Now looking at the processors, the Xperia Z1 comes with the Snapdragon 800 2.2 GHz quad-core processor, so quite a nice processor, one of the highest out there at the moment. Now they've not been specific in terms of the cores or the clock speed on the iPhone 5S, but you've got the A7 chip, which is a 64-bit chip, and we will have to see these side by side in terms of the performance to really determine what the differences are. You've got 2 GB of RAM on the Xperia Z1. On the iPhone 5S, they've not been specific. I believe it is 1 GB of RAM, and again, performance we'll have to see side by side. Different versions available. You've got the 16, 32 and 64 GB versions on the iPhone 5S. On the Xperia Z1, you've only got the 16 GB version, but it is expandable, micro SD up to 64 GB. So you do have the option of expanding on here. That's quite nice to see, considering that this is a waterproof phone. So the fact that you can expand storage on here is quite nice to see. Now the cameras, this is probably the most interesting aspects of both of these devices here. Now the iPhone 5S has the same resolution as the iPhone 5, which is 8 megapixels, but the pixels are larger. You've got 1.5 microns compared to the 1.3 that you had on the iPhone 5. So it is supposed to be doing better in low light. But if you compare that to the Xperia Z1, the Xperia Z1 has the same sensor size as some of the compacts out there, which is absolutely awesome to see that in a smartphone of this size as well. Really impressed with this 20.7 megapixels, and also because of that larger sensor, low light performance will be great. So now it'll be really interesting to see the difference in the low light images between these two. So side by side comparisons will tell us more, but the Sony Xperia Z1 looking very impressive here. In terms of video, the Sony Xperia Z can film 1080p at 30 frames a second from the rear facing camera, the same as the iPhone 5S, but the iPhone 5S also has 720p at 120 frames a second, which is going to be really great for slow motion. The Sony Xperia Z1 also offers HDR video, so that's going to be really nice for your dynamic range on your videos as well as images. Now in terms of the front facing cameras, the Sony Xperia Z1 does have a 2 megapixel front facing camera with 1080p HD as well. The iPhone 5S, you've still only got the 1.2 megapixel front facing camera, which is only 720p. This is a disappointment for me. I would have liked to have seen 1080p, which pretty much all the other flagships are offering on the Android side, 1080p from the front facing camera, and it's consistent with the rear facing camera if you do want to edit footage together, but that's a disappointment for me on the iPhone 5S. Now in terms of the operating systems, you've got Android Jelly Bean 4.2.2 on the Sony Xperia Z1, you've got iOS 7, out of the box on the iPhone 5S. Now both of these have their advantages and disadvantages, but talking about some of the key features, some of the unique features that these devices offer. The Xperia Z1, you've got InfoEye. Now Sony have partnered with lots of different companies out there, so you can take pictures of things like books or buildings and things, and it's going to pull up information directly on your screen, and you're going to be able to maybe buy a book from there on Amazon and things like that. So that's quite interesting to see. You've also got live social streaming, so you can stream a video live from your smartphone to things like Facebook, and people can comment on them and they will be coming up real time, so that's quite unique. Now the iPhone 5S also has a very unique feature, which is Touch ID, the fingerprint scanner on the home button, so you can unlock your device just by touching it, and you can also make app purchases and things using your fingerprint rather than having to enter a password all the time. So that's quite unique and something different that we've not seen. Now in terms of the batteries, the Sony Xperia Z1 has a 3000 milliamp battery, whereas the iPhone 5S has a 1440 milliamp battery. So you've got more than double the capacity on the Xperia Z1. Yes, it's a larger screen and you are going to be pushing out more pixels, but more than double the capacity does indicate that it will be giving you more usage. Finally, looking at price, the base versions, the 16GB versions, the Xperia Z1 between 550 to 600 pounds here in the UK offline, and I think about $199 on a 2-year contract in the US, and it's going to be available end of September. The iPhone 5S, the 16GB version, £549 here in the UK, or $199 on a 2-year contract in the US. So similar-ish pricing on both of these devices. The iPhone 5S is going to be available from the 20th of September. So those were the key differences between these two devices. The iPhone 5S definitely a lot more compact and easier for one-handed usage, but at the expense of the larger size. The Sony Xperia Z1 does have a much larger screen, and it's also got the water and dust resistant feature, especially that camera, 20.7 megapixels, and it's the same size as compact cameras out there. So that's very, very interesting to see, and we'll definitely have to see side-by-side comparisons. Which one do you think is better? Which one will you be going for? Well, do drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, as always, please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And why not subscribe to the channel? I've got plenty more content coming up on here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time. If you want to see more regular videos like this one, then be sure to hit the subscribe button, which will be below. If you're on a mobile device, it may be somewhere else. If you want to see my previous related video, then hit the link right here. If you want to stay in touch over Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, then all of the addresses will be there somewhere, as well as direct links in the description below.